Welcome to Transform Now, the podcast brought to you by robotic process automation pioneer Blue Prism. Digital transformation has the potential to reshape the way companies service their customers, engage their employees, and manage their operations. Whether you're looking to develop strategies, tactics, and best practices to positively impact the future of work, or you're curious to learn how other companies have successfully navigated their digital transformation programs, then this podcast is for you. We're here to help you transform now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brad Hairston with Blue Prism, here to discuss the impact of intelligent automation on the C-suite in the next 5 years. Here to talk about that with me is Pascal Gautheron, a partner with Bain and Company, who is based in Sydney, Australia. Pascal, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Brad. Really happy to be here.
So why don't you provide a quick introduction on yourself and what you do at Bain and Company?
Thanks. At Bain and Company, I work on all of the technology problematic. We call that the enterprise technology part of Bain. I do that across Asia Pacific and across industry. That's in my background personally, is having spent now 25 years in consulting, 20 of which focused almost exclusively on the financial services. Prior to Bain, doing that with Accenture.
Excellent. So Pascal, I think you would agree that the pandemic has really been very eye-opening for companies. Systemic issues that many companies didn't even know they had have been exposed in this, whether it's business continuity plans that didn't work or vulnerable supply chains that got exposed. You have BPO offshore centers that didn't prove to be very reliable. And you also had difficulty that companies had accessing legacy systems in the work from home model. So a lot of things that have risen to the surface as a result of what's been going on globally. On the positive side, I think what has been manifested is we're a lot more agile and flexible than we thought we were. And a lot of industries, yours in fact, consulting, I think, proved that you can do a lot of things from home. You don't necessarily have to be sitting side by side by your clients. And many industries learn the same thing. But in the midst of all that, I think one thing we can say is that companies coming out of this are really looking for more agility and resilience. So with that as a backdrop, let me start off our conversation by asking you this question. How important has it become to the C-suite to carefully evaluate the future of work for their organizations?
Brad, it was really interesting. So same time last year is when it started to obviously hit all of our clients at scale and spread across all the different countries. We were fortunate enough to be able to get a number of clients worldwide together and share their experiences. And I remember running weekly discussions with about a dozen, in my case, CIOs every week from about March till June, July. And there was a few things that were evident. First, that they actually dealt with the transition to remote working much better than they themselves expected. And it was interesting because it massively accelerated a plan that otherwise would have taken 2 years to do in a very organic way. But two, that their workforce adapted also really fast. We'll get later in our conversation is some of the more longer term impacts. But with the short term, what was an amazing amount of resilience effectively by both the technology and the organization. So as a way of introduction to our conversation, this really opened up their eyes to the possibility of thinking differently about the workforce and the future of work.
How do most C-suite executives that you interact with view intelligent automation? And does that view need to change in any way?
So it does, because the crisis in particular put an emphasis on the difference between a knowledge worker and a process worker. And realizing that the knowledge worker caught up really fast and easily and a knowledge worker, effectively individuals who listen and understand to the information that they've been given and make certain decisions out of it. Whereas the process worker effectively exposed that there was an opportunity to really automate the work that they did. And because of this gain kind of confidence in technology, automate by injecting some of that intelligence into it. So what we saw, and especially in obviously services industries, whether that's customer servicing functions in telecommunications, whether that's banking, insurance, and so forth, we really saw that realization that automation was possible, and then heightened confidence in the technology teams to make that happen. But also a realization that it could apply to those process workers at scale a lot more than it necessarily had before.
Okay. So executives maybe now have a broader understanding of where it could impact their business and maybe a desire to pursue that more holistically. Is that fair?
That's fair. And the other thing that happened is when we were talking about more those knowledge workers, we also realized that the topic of data analytics and the topics of intelligence decision-making also came more to the foreground. At the same time, we were talking to our clients normally about their investments profile and what they were going to invest in effectively and where they were going to want to make the change. And so the pandemic kind of gave, well, I would say slightly bizarrely, an acceleration to all of the data analytics and intelligence part of the automation. And effectively, they started to force the executive, instead of relying on turning around and asking their colleague for what the answer was, got them to more ask of their teams to give them the data and electronic format effectively to make those types of decisions, which then leads to the desire in many cases to automate those decisions. So we saw an increase in the need to automate, but also the confidence and comfort level with that.
Pascal, as we think about the world of RPA, and there's thousands of companies globally now that have invested in automation. Many of them haven't yet provisioned AI through their digital workforce. And so they're slow in moving into the era of intelligent automation. Based on what you see going on with AI and other industry trends, do you expect in the near term that a lot more companies are going to make that move and start using AI services with their digital workers so they can automate processes with increasing complexity?
It's an interesting question because it's a question a little bit on the evolution of RPA and whether artificial intelligence is going to evolve the company's mindset around RPA or other things. My personal view is that intelligence or artificial intelligence, yes, is going to enable a continuing scaling of RPA type process automation, but it's combined with a couple of other things. Combine one with low code automation, no-code automation, where the ability to effectively create a piece of automation is being given to a non-technology individuals within the organization. And we're seeing that now happening more and more at scale through technologies like the Microsoft Power Automate type technologies. The other thing that we're seeing is an increasing ease to integrate. So when RPA started, it was deliberately done in such a way that you didn't have to touch the core systems, that you could create a robot effectively that could do what a human did without having to touch the systems underneath it. But because we're seeing the systems modernize, and in particular the standardization of APIs kind of emerge more and more throughout the enterprise, that friction in automating a process directly into the systems is reducing. It's by no means eliminated, but it's reducing. And as companies then continue to invest in digitization. So you put all of that together and you're starting to realize that the progression of RPA is not just linked to AI, it's linked to an adoption or linked to a deployment of API-based integration, methods and linked to the decomposition, effectively, of the core processes of the digital layer. And so what that means is that a technology like yours will, I think, innovatively start to branch into ways to automate a process beyond RPA. And it may be more of a life cycle. So you start a process, you pilot it on an RPA, says you see, can I automate that? Does that make sense? Do I have the right level of intelligence understanding of the document, for example, that I'm trying to automate? And then little by little, that document, it disappears from the system because it gets picked up by a digital mobile and it's digitized at the start, or elements of it get digitized at the start, because the regulators get more comfortable with dealing with non-paper-based evidence, but more digital evidence. And we're seeing that in Australia, for example, with the digitization of the back end of the mortgage process, what we call the conveyancing part of the mortgage process, where actually a company a few years back said, well, I think we can automate that. And they went into the government, they went into the legal profession and into the banks. They can say, hey, if I give you a platform that automated that, could we get rid of all of the paper? And they did that. I mean, it took a while, but they did that. So the idea really is to kind of say, as everyone becomes more and more comfortable, all of the different players that impose paper on us, RPA in the way it used to be, it's completely changing. It's all about discrete process automation, effectively.
So where do you see AI having the biggest impact in the years to come?
So where we're seeing the emergence, I would say, of AI is understand what people do digitally. And I think this is where the artificial intelligence model, and we'll come back to automation, but the combination of digitization, automation, and intelligence kind of is really coming to play. And interesting enough, you'd think that it's all there already, but it's not. It's mostly still in its infancy. Now, let me explain what we mean by that. Is increasingly the technologies of companies in the digital front ends is moving away from discrete channels, a mobile application different to websites with an entire stack underneath that is separate, to be much more classically architected and decoupled. So where the core services are decoupled, data is all centralized in a data lake, and the experiences are more naturally multi-channel. Because of that re-architecting and creating effectively modern architecture in the way companies deal with their customers, it's now allowing them to then take a step back and say, how can I orchestrate those experiences across my multitudes of digital channels, and including into my staff in the way they deal with the customers as part of an end-to-end conversation with the customer. It's allowing them to kind of think about, how can I intelligently orchestrate those conversations? And I think this is where AI is really going to come to its own, where it's no longer just a tool to automate back-end processes, like discrete back-end processes, like underwriting, like a chatbot customer servicing process. It's actually what's going to orchestrate you and I's interactions with our service providers on an end-to-end basis across a multitude of digital channels. From the service provider, it's often what you see kind of called, for example, a customer data platform. It's really not about the data. It's about the intelligence to orchestrate this. So they inject all of the different points of interaction, some as discrete as which part of the mobile phone screen you've touched. And they aggregate all of that and they kind of go, oh, this is what Brad really wants. And this is what Brad really would like us to do for him. And then trigger a change in the way a digital process then reacts to your context, to your prior interactions, and gives you an insight that you just hadn't expected. Conversation that I'm having at the moment with some of the large technology companies is very simple use cases to bring to life, which is basically you wake up, you open your mobile banking app, and the mobile banking app says, happy birthday, right? Mm-hmm. And you go, oh yeah, that's simple because actually the bank knew about my birthday. But actually what's behind, because birthday is one of those AI data point, it's not about reaching your privacy, it's actually about understanding you and your context and saying, I mean, know you've logged in, and I know you're about to, do this transaction, and I'm going to put you in a good mood because the next message behind is actually going to be all around the fact that you've got a payment due. And so that intelligence and the way we deal with people, I think, is what's really kind of the next phase of artificial intelligence use at scale in the way we deal with things.
Which industries do you think will be the leaders in intelligent automation?
I mean, it's a classical case. It's the industries in most need that effectively will be the leaders. If I paint a picture in terms of people that get rid of the need to automate straight away because they've digitized everything to the nth extent, as opposed to people who live in a highly regulated, historically paper-based environment, they're kind of the two bookends. Obviously, the technology companies, the digital native companies are born in the cloud, born in the digital world. They automate, but they don't automate in the way we would talk to banking, insurance, telco type clients. So they're the leaders in one way because they show what's possible by decomposing processes, etc., adopting brand new cloud-based technologies. The leaders that have the biggest need, or the ones that have the biggest need, are typically more the knowledge industry, the services industry. Again, like financial services type company, healthcare, which deals with a lot of kind of historically paper-based and granular processes, so decentralized processes and so forth. So those are the types of companies that will, I think, innovate from the process onwards, the process to digitalization. But we have to watch those that innovate from the digitalization down to the process. And it's that combination of the two that we really need to learn from most of our companies. The ones that are going to lag are the ones that feel the need less, typically your manufacturing companies, your supply chain companies, your mineral companies. They're the ones that feel the need to automate processes less or differently. So we're working a lot with mining companies and implementing intelligent automation in mining, but for them, it starts with the crusher. So it starts with the actual machine, not with a knowledge process. The knowledge process is kind of secondary to automate for them, but it's the actual physical process they're looking to automate. That is becoming more and more software defined as it's networked, as the machine itself has complex software that is running it. Because it's complex software, because it's networked, we're seeing systems that are used to be discrete automation of the process of the machine to now actually be automated through actual automation of systems in the same way that an insurance company would automate underwriting. And so we're kind of seeing the convergence of that.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest need, the biggest opportunity at the moment sits more with the knowledge industry. So financial services, customer servicing industries, healthcare type industries.
Which company leaders do you think will play the biggest role in digital transformation going forward?
So it's interesting. The ones that have the best understanding, obviously, of the potential, so what we often call the art of the possible around intelligent automation, but the ones that work directly with you and all the technology companies, they tend to historically be more the IT leaders and the chief digital officers and the CIOs and chief technology officers. They also tend to be the ones that struggle the most to bring it to life at scale. And I mean by that, get the business to adopt it. They can implement it, but they struggle the most to get it to adopt it. And so the ones I think that have the most impact at the moment are the business leaders of those processes, of those humans that are running those processes, that understand that out of the possible, that actually truly approach this as an opportunity to collaborate with the IT organization, collaborate with their digital organization. And so I can't put a finger on an actual C at a level individual, but more of a profile of a C level, but that will really be the evangelist for that in the organization. They're typically the ones that feel the biggest need, the biggest opportunity, that understands the biggest opportunity, but also that are comfortable with the technology, that are collaborative. The ideal C-level executives you will see in organizations are those that have spent some of their career in technology. So that level of comfort is kind of built in the experience, but that are now more in decision-making positions of running large part of core processes or core individuals running the company. The one thing that we seeing more as a trend now is a combination of technology and operations under the same executive. And the logic is very simple, is if I have the same executive running technology and operations, then they can effectively make the operations piece redundant because they can apply technology to it. They can apply automation to back office processes. So those are individuals also worth watching and we're working with, because they've got the tools, they've got the comfort, and they've got the understanding on how that can happen.
So Pascal, I have one last question for you, and this is probably the deepest question. So get ready. For companies that are truly trying to transform themselves, and that's most companies, especially after the pandemic, what is required of them to fully reinvent or reimagine work across the enterprise?
So the unit of transformation used to be, in a very classical sense, a process. And it used to be a process in the sense of there's this, in the old days, there's these pieces of paper that need to move from station to station to be stamped by different people. A very simplistic definition of process. It's now moved to this concept of episodes. So what Bain calls episodes, what others would often refer to as customer journeys. And that's therefore changing the nature of the way we look at automation, because we're not automating a process anymore. We're automating an episode, which we define as at the start of something to be needed to be done, all the way to completion of that thing to be done for the customer. So for me, what matters, so for example, in banking, what matters is that I get to buy that home, not that you take me through an underwriting process, and then you take me through a documentation process, and then you take me through a conveyancing process. It's what matters to an episode, a mortgage origination episode, is one that allows me to dream about my home all the way to actually be in my home. So that's the episode. That's the unit that we're automating now. That unit applied at scale, in my situation, can be very different to my neighbor's situation. And so we can't just simply apply like an end-to-end process, because it would be massively complex as a process. But we've got to actually decompose it into a number of different elements, effectively mini services that recompose to serve me in my episode versus you in your episode for the same inherent need. And so when you think of it like that, effectively, the nature of work gets reimagined, where most of the valuable work, so most of where we want the humans, is to help in that orchestration, to help in making sure that the episode is indeed completed to the satisfaction of the customer, which is less about shuffling the paper and stamping the paper. It's actually more about understanding the nuances and making sure that it's been reassembled, all of those elements of the services being reassembled properly to serve you, as opposed to me in a different way. So that's where the workers are going to go. And therefore the automation has to go in enabling that to happen in the background. Decomposition of the services, that's where the automation has to go. Providing intelligent tooling for that orchestration, that's where the automation has to go, and so forth. So you will, when you deal with Bain in particular, you will see that we're very customer centric in the way we think about it. We like to call it kind of simple and digital. It's a nice catchphrase, because that's exactly what you want the episodes to be. You want them to be, from the customer's perspective, simple; from the enterprise perspective, completely digital. So that's the nature of automation. It is changing more towards thinking, I'm automating an episode, I'm automating a customer outcome, not a process, and in a way, not a worker in the way work would have traditionally been defined.
I love it. Think about outcomes, not processes.
That's right.
It's a great way to wrap up. So Pascal, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. I think you've given business leaders a lot of good things to consider as they lead their organizations in digital transformation and intelligent automation here in the years to come.
Thanks for tuning in to Transform Now. For more insightful discussions on digital transformation and more, check out our podcast channel where you'll find all of our previous episodes. To make sure you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player. And if you like what you heard, please leave us a review. For more information about digital transformation and the future of work, check out blueprism.com to learn how Blue Prism's digital workforce is enabling enterprise transformation now.